He can accumulate points. There's Lauda just coming into your picture now. In fourth place now. He's moved up. De Angelis, I think, is down on power. I think De Angelis maybe has an engine problem. But Lauda has with his back. The problem is, if he clicks his back out because of the G-forces in the car, he's had vertebrae getting out of place, it pinches the nerve. And this is a big challenge for him, because if his back does go out, he's going to have to withstand the pain and somehow finish the car in the points to consolidate the championship.
Well, real excitement here at Monza. Piquet leading then, Torbe second, Barbi is in third position, Lauda is now fourth, De Angelis is fifth, Alboreto is sixth, Maestro is seventh, Shiva is eighth, and Derek Warwick is in ninth position. And this is lap 5, and Nelson Piquet, who very much needs World Championship points, not with any hope of getting the World Championship, but at least with the hope of finishing third behind the two McLarens. But Teo Fabi, charged up as he is by the fact that he is an Italian racing in Italy, is now harrying Patrick Tambay. Watch them as they come out of the bend there. There is Patrick Tambay in the red rear-winged Renault in second position, who's had a very thin season, not doing anything about Piquet and worried about keeping behind him as they come down to the Ascari chicane on lap 5. Keeping behind him, Teo Fabi there, number 2 in the second Brabham BMW. And those people who say the BMW engine has been unreliable for Piquet in the last few races need to remember that only once has the actual engine failed, because an oil line broke, a turbo broke, the tyres went off, and it was only once that the engine gave trouble, and they've been working very hard on the ancillaries. Coming up to complete lap 5, Piquet, Tambay, Fabi, first, second and third. In fourth position, it's Lauda. Pulling away now from 5th, De Angelis. 6th, Alboreto. And now Shiva and Warwick are closing right up on Nigel Mansell, who's in 7th position. The Italian Grand Prix. Nigel Mansell, who is 7th, is being caught by Eddie Shiva. And we've got the usual noise problem at Monza. I don't need to tell you that. We're sitting in a concrete grandstand with the noise beating down on the microphones from the roof above us. But there is Tambay still second. There is Fabi still third. The leader disappears and now comes towards us. It's Nelson Piquet. This is lap 6. And behind Nelson Piquet in 4th position is Niki Lauda. And as James says, Lauda just needs to keep going to get World Championship points and extend his thin 1.5 points lead over his teammate Prost, who has retired. And there is Lauda in the background. Behind Lauda, De Angelis.
Yes, and I suspect Lauda is taking it pretty comfortably at the moment. There's no reason for him to rush. He just wants to pick up points. He's quite happy so long as he stays in touch with the leaders. If he wants more points at the end of the race, he can make a challenge then.
Of the race. So now the Ferrari fans, the Tifosi's cup of misery will be overflowing, because one of their two cars which qualified so badly, that of René Arnoux, is out of the Italian Grand Prix on lap 7. We have two major retirements already. Alain Prost and now René Arnoux as the leader. Piquet, second Tambay, third Fabi, come down to the Ascari bends, and we look back behind them to see it's still Lauda in 4th position, De Angelis 5th. Nigel Mansell has been passed by Alboreto. There is René Arnoux out of his car as the leaders come down to towards the Parabolica with Niki Lauda there in 4th position, and those sparks are from the titanium skid plates underneath Piquet's car. Nothing to worry about. Completing lap 8-7. Piquet. There is Tombé. And Alboreto up into 5th place, and a roar of excitement and approval that the Italian fans stand and cheer, because Alboreto is the only Ferrari driver left. He is up into 5th position. But a wonderful fight for the first place. Nelson Piquet pacing himself, James, or really going for it?
And there goes Teo Fabi. And I was just about to say, I would suspect that Piquet is going absolutely flat out, because the one thing you don't like to see on your tail is your own teammate. And Fabi, Italian driver in his home Grand Prix, but he's got going again. He didn't lose the engine, so he will rejoin in something like 12th, 13th place, thereabouts, and not out of touch, because Fabi was going very well indeed in the race, and he could still get right back into the points. In the meantime, though, Piquet definitely giving it 11 tenths, absolutely flat out at the moment, on the limit, with Tombé.
And we are now on lap 8, and there is the first of what I suspect will be many blown engines. Teo Fabi spun in 3rd position. That has let Niki Lauda up to 3rd position, and that was Stefan Johansson, who has apparently, he's up to 13th position. Piquet goes through, and the gap between Patrick Tombé is less than a second now. Patrick Tombé is going to challenge for the lead. Niki Lauda is in 3rd position on lap 9. There's a big gap between those three. Alboreto is now up into 4th. 5th and Chiva 6th. Keke Rosberg has retired. Keke Rosberg has stopped within our sight. This is going to be a race where engine after engine blows. Rosberg is out on lap 9. Arnoux was out on lap 7. Prost was out on lap 3. And it is still Piquet leading, Tombé 2nd, Lauda in 3rd position. De Angelis has gone down to 5th position, with Alboreto now 4th.
Yes, and they're beginning to edge away from Niki Lauda. How hard he's trying to keep up, one can't speculate at this stage, because of course he only wants points. He wants a good steady race. There's an oil flag. You see the yellow striped flag on the left of your picture, just on the edge of the picture. That means there's oil or some other slippery substance on the track, just to warn the drivers.
Well, the gap between Lauda and Alboreto, who are 4th and 5th, is 5.5 seconds, and Alboreto's got a real train of vehicles behind him as Nelson Piquet goes through to complete his 9th lap, pulling away a bit now from Patrick Tombé 2nd, and it's still on his own, Niki Lauda, as Tombé goes through the Goodyear chicane. Now it's Alboreto. But now Teo Fabi is fighting his way up through the field after that spin of his. He's in amongst the battle for 4th and 5th place. That's Alboreto, De Angelis, Chiva, Derek Warwick, and Teo Fabi has not only caught them, but has passed 2 of them. We're on lap 10 now. Nelson Piquet on his own. He's only got to pray for a reliable BMW engine to keep him where he is, and that is to make it his 2nd successive victory in the Italian Grand Prix. He won in 1983. And there is the brilliant reigning world champion, only for 2 more races, because he's certainly going to lose the title. There is the parked Ferrari of René Arnoux, and coming towards us there is Alboreto, De Angelis, Fabi, Chiva, Derek Warwick, Jacques Lafitte, Nigel Mansell.
Yes, terrific midfield battle, but it is very nice to see Murray, to see the Ferraris revive it. And there's Alain Prost walking back to the pits, and that will be a great disappointment for him. Of course, he now has to put his World Championship chances into the lap of the gods, and whether Lauda can consolidate and finish this race in the points. But to see the Ferrari back in contention is terrific. Yes, the relative decline of Ferrari during the second half of this season has been a sad sight to see, and in fact yesterday it was possible to walk from one end of the pits to the other without actually being injured, which has never in my experience been possible at Monza before, and I think that's to do with Ferrari. So it's wonderful to see Alboreto right back and fighting, and Ferraris have finally found some sort of form for the race.
And when you see numbers along the bottom of your screen, it will indicate what lap they are on and the numbers of the drivers in race order. Thus, number 1, there he is, Nelson Piquet leading. Number 15, Tambay second, very close. There is Niki Lauda in 3rd position. There is Alboreto in 4th. Teo Fabi has come up to 5th position ahead of Elio De Angelis. In 7th position, the green and red Alfa Romeo of Eddie Cheever. There is the yellow Renault of Derek Warwick, followed by Nigel Mansell. And Nelson Piquet completes another lap. And there's a long, long gap now between the 2nd place man, Patrick Tambay, and 3rd, Niki Lauda. Here are Cheever and Warwick. Cheever being taken by Warwick. And that's Fabi up into 4th position now. He's taken Alboreto. So Teo Fabi, who's spun out in 3rd position on lap 8, is getting back through the field. He's up to 4th position. There's Piquet leading round the Lesmo bends. And Patrick Tambay hanging on. We are on lap 12. It's Piquet, Tambay, Lauda, Alboreto, Fabi, De Angelis, or was when that caption was prepared, because now Teo Fabi is up to 4th ahead of the Italian in the Ferrari, and Lafitte has gone into the pits. So it's another miserable race for Williams with Keke Rosberg out of it.
So now the big question mark for the race is, can Lauda overcome any back problems, and can he look after the car? Because McLaren's, uncharacteristically for them, and Tambay ever closer but not really in a threatening position, looking for a mistake from Piquet, because he'll need that to get past. But McLaren's uncharacteristically had quite a problem this morning in that both cars were blowing water out of their cooling system. On Prost's car and on Lauda's, they lost about 2 litres in only 8 or 9 laps. As a result of which Prost ended up driving the spare, and they changed the engine on Niki's car.
So here is Nelson Piquet leading on lap 13 with Patrick Tambay behind him in 2nd position. Niki Lauda is now some 7 seconds behind this battle, holding a watching brief because he's clearly not going to catch the 2 cars in front of him. He is fairly comfortably ahead of Teo Fabi, who is in 4th place with Michele Alboreto 5th, and in 6th position is De Angelis, followed by Eddie Cheever, Derek Warwick, Nigel Mansell, Stefan Johansson, Thierry Boutsen, and Johansson has done extremely well. He was 26th on the first lap. He's now up to 10th as Piquet and Tambay, 1st and 2nd on lap 13 in this 52-lap race, exit the Ascari chicane, go down towards the Parabolica. Now look for Lauda. He's going to be the next one round.
And Tambay is now suffering from the perennial problem of following a Brabham-BMW. The car is very, very fast in a straight line. There is no doubt that Tambay would be able to lap quicker if he was on his own, if he could get past Piquet, but he has to follow in the disturbed air. He doesn't get the grip. Now they go over the line, and whilst Tombe is right there, he's not really in a position to challenge Piquet.
Patrick Tombe in second place, and that's the second of these two cars, and the third position man, Niki Lauda. So the battle for leadership continues to rage on lap 14 between these two cars. World champion Nelson Piquet, who has already won in Canada and Detroit this year, won second place, but 9 failures to finish. There go the sparks from his skid plates again. Nothing to worry about. They've got a heavy fuel load, of course. They start off with 2. Mansell out. Nigel Mansell has spun off, and I suspect that is at the Rozier chicane. So Nigel Mansell, he won't get going again. His car will be full of dust and gravel, and he's out of the Italian Grand Prix.
Yes, no chance on that gravel that they put down. Is absolutely brilliant at stopping a car, but you try and drive out of it, you just spin the wheels and just dig in deeper. It's which, in fact, if you think about it, is a fair penalty, and it's really a pity that they don't incorporate that sort of runoff area for safety reasons at a lot of other tracks.
Well, the battle continues. Here it is. And Niki Lauda is continuing. But now Teo Fabi is right with Lauda. Teo Fabi has caught Niki Lauda. Piquet leads, Tombe second, Lauda third, but soon I suspect Teo Fabi is going to catch and pass Niki Lauda, who won't have to worry too much. Elio De Angelis has just gone limping past us, I think having missed a gear badly, and he's going very slowly up to the Goodyear chicane, and I don't think it'll be long before the second JPS Lotus is out of the race to join Mansell, Lafitte, Rosberg, Arnoux and Prost, who have already retired on lap 15. 2 pairs of cars. Piquet in trouble. Do you see that burst of smoke from Piquet's car? Is he slowing? Well, that's a danger sign.
Yes, there was. Yes, there we go. Yes, Piquet is definitely on his last legs. He can't do that and carry on for very long. So we saw the burst of smoke. He's still pressing on, but I don't honestly think that we're going to see Piquet for more than a couple of laps. Even if it's an oil leak, right, it'll eventually run out and everything has to stop. So Tombe, who must be very happy, he's had a wretched season for Renault. Things really haven't gone well. He hasn't been able to show his true ability. Piquet has slowed right down now, in real trouble. His engine sounds horrible, and there goes Tombe into the lead.
Lap 16, and Patrick Tombe takes the lead. There he is, from Nelson Piquet, whose engine is extremely rough. I said earlier on that the BMW engine itself had given little trouble in the last 4 races when Nelson had problems, but I think the exception is this, the 5th, because now, for the first time this season, and indeed since he joined the Renault team, Patrick Tombe, the tremendously popular Frenchman who actually lives in Wimbledon, is leading a Grand Prix, and that will be manna from heaven as far as the Renault organisation is concerned. There is Niki Lauda, who has got, you can see Teo Fabi right behind it. There's the race leader. That is Jonathan Palmer. Here is Patrick Tombe on lap 16, leading the Italian Grand Prix, and he's leading now with, it depends whether Lauda or Piquet come through next as to who the second place man will be. Let's look and see. It's Lauda. Lauda is now second on lap 16. There is Tombe leading, going into the Parabolica. And Nelson Piquet will almost certainly come into the pits. I'll watch to see whether he does so or not, as Tombe crosses the line. Now in the lead, Niki Lauda is keeping in second position, and Teo Fabi is now third, and Piquet is missing. So Alboreto is in 4th position, and I'm talking to you on lap 17 with Chiva 5th, Gerrit Warwick in 6th place. Stefan Johansson is now up into 7th position.
Stefan Johansson in the Tolman is in 7th position, having started 26th on the grid, and Piquet is in the pits. Piquet is in the pits, and so is Elio De Angelis in this now grippingly exciting Italian Grand Prix. Piquet out of it, Mansell out of it, Lafitte out of it, Rosberg out of it, and Arnoux and Prost. And there comes the engine cover and the cockpit cover off Piquet's car. Piquet is out of the car. Piquet is out of the Italian Grand Prix. And now it is Tombe leading with Lauda second, and I think soon to be displaced by Fabi. Alboreto is 4th, Chiva is 5th, Warwick is 6th, Johansson is 7th, Boutsen 8th, Patrese 9th, Ginzani 10th, Gartner 11th, and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian in the ATS, is in 12th place.
Ein Renault führt im Grand Prix von Italien, das ist auch nicht unbedingt papierformgemäß. Vor Lauda und Fabi hat nicht gestimmt, das heißt erster Tombe, zweiter Fabi und dritter Lauda. Das letzte Mal, dass ein Renault in einem Formel 1 Grand Prix heuer geführt hat, glaube ich, ist in Dallas passiert, allerdings nur wenige Meter, vielleicht erinnern Sie sich. Derek Warwick hat damals den führenden Keke Rosberg bereits überholt, hat sich aber beim Anbremsen der nächsten Kurve gedreht, ist ausgeschieden. Das war also eine Führung von nur einigen Metern. Echte Führung hatte Patrick Tambay in Dijon herausgefahren. Damals führte Tambay vom Start weg, wurde dann von Lauda überholt. Nach den Reifenwechsel, Boxenstopps hat wieder Tambay die Führung übernommen und wurde dann ein zweites Mal von Lauda überholt, und Lauda hat...
And now it is Tombe leading with Lauda second, and I think soon to be displaced by Fabi. Alboreto is 4th, Chiva is 5th, Warwick is 6th, Johansson is 7th, Boutsen 8th, Patrese 9th, Ginzani 10th, Gartner 11th, and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian in the ATS, is in 12th place. Tombe. Now look amongst this bunch of cars, and you'll see in second place, the third of them is Niki Lauda. It's not, it's Fabi. Fabi is now up into second place ahead of Niki Lauda, and we could yet see a charge by Teo Fabi with his Italian adrenaline flowing in the Italian Grand Prix to catch the leader, Patrick Tombe.
Fabi now in second place is some 5 seconds or 5.5 seconds behind Tombe, and before his spin he seemed to be the quickest on the circuit. But of course at that time, remember that Tombe was being held up by Piquet. Piquet is now gone, Tombe is lapping quicker, but can Fabi catch him?
Vorsprung von 3 Sekunden gehabt hat auf den nächstschnellsten. 7 Minuten lang war Berger theoretisch sogar im Besitz der Pole Position. Er hat handgeschnitzte Slicks verwendet, also Trockenreifen, in die man mit der Hand Rillen hineingeschnitten hat. Tombe führt 5,8 Sekunden vor Fabi. Weitere 9 Zehntel zurück, Niki Lauda an der 3. Stelle. Dann 7 Sekunden später Alboreto an 4. Stelle. Lauda also 9 Zehntel hinter Fabi und genau 6,9 Sekunden vor Michele Alboreto. Was kann man von Teo Fabi noch erwarten? Heuer sehr viele Ausfälle. 9. Platz dann in Dijon, 4. in Detroit, 4. in Zeltweg und 5. in Zandvoort. Hat also die beiden letzten Rennen beenden können. Vielleicht hat Brabham-BMW Fabi als kleinen Ansporn einen besonders guten Motor heute zugespielt. Niki Lauda fährt mit genügend Abstand jetzt hinter Teo Fabi her. Sollte dem Italiener wieder ein Fehler passieren, sollte sich Fabi wieder einmal drehen. schauen wir uns auch gleich den Saisonrekord von Patrick Tambay, dem Führenden, an. In Rio an 3. Stelle das Benzin ausgegangen und dann 6. Platz. Blick auf die prall gefüllt.
And there's some very important dignitaries from Italy in the VIP's box here today, watching over the Italian Grand Prix, and they're seeing Patrick Tambay leading, Theo Fabi now in second place, 7 seconds behind.
And what we are seeing is an absolutely superb drive from Stefan Johansson. The Tolman team have been suffering their problems recently with contractual difficulties with Ayrton Senna, and they brought in Stefan Johansson. He had a lot of trouble qualifying, just qualified the car on the back of the grid, and is now absolutely charging through this race. So a marvellous drive by Stefan Johansson, and I would think that will virtually guarantee him a job with Tolman next year.
Well, sad news for the JPS team and fans. Elio De Angelis is out of the Italian Grand Prix. He had a mathematical chance of becoming world champion when the race began. That has now been totally destroyed, and the championship is now finally between Alain Prost, who is retired, and the second of these two men that you're looking at. It's Niki Lauda, who is in 3rd position in the race, on his way at the moment to 4 championship points. And either then Alain Prost or Niki Lauda has to be world champion of 1984.
Der Formel 1 den Weltmeistertitel zwischen Teamkollegen entschieden wird. Erstmals passiert 1950 zwischen den Alpha-Fahrern Fangio, Farina und Fagioli. Dann 1960 bei Cooper zwischen Jack Brabham und Bruce McLaren. 1961 das tragische Duell bei Ferrari zwischen Phil Hill und Graf Trips. 1967 bei Brabham das Duell zwischen Jack Brabham und seinem Stallkollegen Dennis Halm. Dann 1978 das Lotus-Duell Mario Andretti gegen Ronnie Peterson, das hier in Monza auf tragische Weise entschieden wurde. Und 1979 bei Ferrari Jody Scheckter gegen Jacques Villeneuve. Scheckter wurde damals Weltmeister, übrigens in Monza, durch einen Sieg, den ihm Teamkollege Gilles Villeneuve ermöglicht hat. Die 20. Runde ist fertig. Tambay führt 6,3 vor Fabi, 7 Sekunden vor Lauda, 15,8 vor Alboreto, 20,3 vor Warwick, 23 vor Cheever, 24 vor Johansson, 44 vor Patrese, 49 vor Ginzani, der überraschend weit vorgestoßen ist und bereits 9. ist. 10. ist Gardner, 1 Minute und 22 Rückstand. Und 11. ist Fuß mit 1 Minute 28 Rückstand. 12. Polmer, 13. Rotengarter, 14. Berger und 15. Surer. Diese 4 je eine Runde Rückstand und nur noch diese 15 Fahrer im Rennen. 11 in der gleichen Runde. Am nächsten zu überrunden der Belgier Thierry Bus mit dem Aero. Fabi vor Lauda. ...30 Runden noch zu fahren im Autodrom von Monza. Lauda lässt sich im Augenblick mit Theo Fabi in keinen Zweikampf ein. Er hat den führenden Patrick Tambay in Sicht, was psychologisch für einen Formel-1-Fahrer immer sehr wichtig ist. Ich glaube auch nicht an der Fahrweise Laudas zu erkennen, dass der Österreicher mit letztem Risiko und letzten Einsatz fährt. Hier haben Sie grafisch die Abstände. Bei Start und Ziel vorbei bereits Patrick Tambay und räumlich sind das die Rückstände von Fabi, Lauda, dann etwas später Alboreto und Warwick. Für Niki Lauda waren alle Vorzeichen im Autodrom von Monza relativ ungünstig. Ist schon sehr stark verkühlt nach Monza gekommen. Dann das ewige Problem mit den Wasserkühlern des McLaren. Schnellste Runde Theo Fabi, 1:32,418 in der 22. Runde, 1:32,418. Damit hat Fabi den...
I must say I'm a little worried in purist terms at the way Fabi is really clouting the entry and the exit to the chicanes by riding the curbs. He is, of course, doing a 10/10 in his efforts to catch Patrick Tambay, who's 5.5 seconds ahead of him. Nevertheless, look at the way Lauda is going through the corners, and you will note that he's demonstrably smoother than Teo Fabi in front of him, and it looks to me as though Patrick Tambay is dropping back a bit.
It's really impossible at the moment to assess Lauda's form in this race. He looks very comfortable indeed, as Murray says, extremely smooth, while Fabi is obviously on 10/10ths and giving it everything. But Lauda doesn't have to hurry now. He can sit. He can sit back and watch the leaders fight it out. He's using Fabi to tow him up towards Patrick Tambay, whose lead is dwindling. And he just has to relax, because only at about three-quarters distance does the race really start for Niki Lauda.
Now, we're on lap 24, and Teo Fabi, there he is in second place, is catching Tambay at the rate of 1 second a lap. In third position, the second of the two cars you see in the picture, it's Niki Lauda. In fourth position is Michele Alboreto. Fifth is Derek Warwick, and in sixth position, Eddie Cheever. In seventh place is Stefan Johansson, going superbly in the Tolman.
Jo Gardner, Thierry Boutsen und den führenden Patrick Tambay. Gardner liegt an 10. Stelle, hält sich also sehr gut. Nach einem ziemlich misslungenen Training. Gardner ist am Freitag das Gaspedal hängen geblieben. Er hat in seiner ersten Enttäuschung sogar schon vom Aufhören gesprochen. Hat überlegt, ob es seinen Sinn hat, überhaupt weiterzumachen oder ob er nicht alles hinschmeißen sollte. War sehr enttäuscht, weil er nicht verstanden hat, warum dieses Pech immer nur ihn trifft. Zwischen Tambay und Fabi jetzt nur noch 3,2 Sekunden. Tambay überrundet Boutsen noch vor der ersten Schikane. Gardner macht vor der ersten Schikane noch nicht Platz. Tambay war auch noch lange nicht nahe genug dran. Er hat gestern im Qualifikationstraining für Jo Gardner einmal Piquet unmittelbar vor ihm, Motorschaden, einmal Ölverlust von Eddie Cheever unmittelbar vor ihm, und damit waren die beiden schnellen Qualifikationsrunden schon mehr oder minder verschenkt, und dazu kam, dass sich Gardner in seiner schnellsten Runde noch zweimal verschaltet hat. Tambays Vorsprung auf Fabi wird immer kleiner, 1,8 Sekunden nur noch. So, Gardner in der letzten Kurve jetzt überrundet von Patrick Tambay, auch von Fabi. Blaue Flaggen überrunden lassen. Niki Lauda jetzt auch schon vorbei am Österreicher Gardner, an seinem Landsmann. Zum ersten Mal seit Seltweg, zum zweiten Mal überhaupt in der Formel-1-Geschichte. Ja, heute wieder 3 Österreicher in einem Grand Prix, und alle 3 sind noch im Rennen. So, das ist eine vorentscheidende Phase dieses Rennens. 25. Runde. Die ersten 3 jetzt knapp hintereinander. Tambay, Fabi, Lauda. Tambay auf Renault, Fabi auf Brabham-BMW und Lauda auf McLaren. Dann die überrundeten Boutsen und Gardner. Überrundet jetzt auch zum zweiten Mal, glaube ich, bereits harte Reifen. Die ersten 3 knapp hinter. Dann ein österreichischer Konstrukteur bei Alfa Romeo, Gustav Brunner, der die Alfa, die heuer noch nicht sehr viel gezeigt haben, völlig umgemodelt hat. Neues Auspuffsystem, neue Aerodynamik, neue Karosserie und neue Kühler. Trotzdem wird Brunner heuer zu Saisonende Alfa verlassen, wird wahrscheinlich nach England übersiedeln. Der neue Alfa-Konstrukteur wird wahrscheinlich Ingenieur Carletti, der beste Freund von Patrick Tambay, den Tambay von Ferrari zu Renault mitgenommen hat. Nur, dass Sie sehen, wie in der Formel 1 oft die verschiedenen Schicksale oder Beziehungen miteinander verknüpft sind. Tambay, Fabi, Lauda in der dritten Schikane.
He will wait if he's going to make a challenge, for sure he's not going to make it until about the last quarter of the race. He's just going to sit there and watch and hope that they burn each other out.
Now Teo Fabi can see his chance. Coming out of the Parabolica, he will be right up with Patrick Tambay, but not close enough. And incidentally, Michele Alboreto in 4th place, as you can see, is some 12 seconds behind Lauda, some 5 seconds ahead of Warwick, who's 5th. Chiva is in 6th place, and Stefan Johansson, up from 26th at the start of the race, is in 7th place, substituting for the suspended Ayrton Senna in the Toleman team, who's been suspended by the Toleman management for, they allege, breaking his contract in signing to drive for the JPS Lotus team for the next 3 years, starting in 1985. But never mind about 1985, this is 1984, and it's all action. Lap 28, Tambay, Fabi, Lauda. The Frenchman, the Italian, and the Austrian, and you can see how close they are, fighting for the lead. And Renault, if Patrick Tambay wins this race, will surely make him a hero of France, because they have not won a Grand Prix in 1984. They've had all sorts of problems. Derek Warwick is in 5th position, so both Renaults are in the World Championship points places at the moment. Derek Warwick has got the Ferrari of Michele Alboreto ahead of him in 4th position, and behind Warwick in 6th place is the Alfa Romeo of Eddie Chiva, which will almost certainly run out of fuel in the closing stages of the race. It usually does, and Chiva is expecting it to. Exiting the Parabolica. Tambay, Fabi, Lauda. It's 190 miles an hour up to the chicane here, where they slow down to a mere 100 to accelerate to 130 out of it. Then up to about 100, and you can see now that Fabi, I think, is going to go for it, coming out of the Parabolica in this lap. He's riding the curbs. He's right under the wing, almost, of Patrick Tambay's Renault, which pulls away on good, extremely good 4th gear handling as they come out of the 2 Lesmo bends, round the Seraglio, the left-hander here, down to the Vialoni and the Ascari chicane.
And I think Fabi is possibly losing grip with his tires. He's been driving the car very hard indeed. And whilst he was able to haul in and catch Tambay, I think he may have shot his bolt doing that. He looks to be struggling for grip now. He was quite slow around the Lesmos. Lauda reeled him in. And I think Fabi is getting into tire trouble.
Yeah, Niki Lauda, of course, recently, but certainly since his seat was made for him. Over the line, it's Tambay, Fabi, Lauda. And Niki was literally slopping about in the seat, which probably caused his problems. The seat has been rebuilt overnight with a lot of extra padding, and in the warm-up, Niki professed himself to be happy with the revised seating arrangements, which of course are absolutely vital. The G-forces in Grand Prix racing are enormous. The drivers are held down by straps over their shoulders, round their waist, over their thighs. And these are the first 3 on lap 30 in this 51 lap plus the warm-up lap, 51 laps of actual racing, which is 184 miles an hour, 184 miles as makes no difference. And Patrick Tambay still leads in the V6 Renault from the straight 4 BMW and the V6 tag-powered McLaren of double world champion there, Niki Lauda. Is he going to make it 3 world championships? They're waiting for Tambay to come into the pits. So what James was saying about tyres looks as though it is right.
Yeah, I think both the leaders are in a bit of trouble with their tyres. I'm not saying that the tyres are really bad, but I think both Tambay and Fabi are potential stoppers for tyres. And Lauda's taken the conservative route for the hard compound. Fabi's challenging for the lead there, having a little look, not really a threat. But Lauda has come back at them without making any apparent effort. So things look to be terribly well for Niki Lauda.
So, who is this man, Matteo Fabi, you may say? Well, he's 29, he comes from Milan. He finished third in the Formula 2 European Championship back in 1982, I think it was. And then he drove for the Tolman team, but because he refused to take part in the drivers' strike in South Africa, he was not very popular. He didn't do well that season. He went to drive in Indy racing in America. He took pole position for Indianapolis last year and the fastest lap. He finished second in the Indy Championship. There is Alboreto in fourth position, and here are the first three. And you can see that Lauda is getting closer and closer to Fabi, who is maintaining his about 6 or 7 car lengths gap between himself and Tombe, or rather Tombe is maintaining the gap as they come through to complete lap 31. First, second and third, Tombe, Fabi, Lauda. In fourth position, it's still Alboreto, who is now 13 seconds behind this battle for the lead. In fifth position, it's Warwick, who is 6 seconds behind Alboreto. In sixth position, it's Chiva. In seventh position, it is Johansson, who is now only 1.5 seconds behind Eddie Chiva in sixth position. So Stefan Johansson may well end up on the leaderboard, and Fabi is, I think, I'll say it again, going to have a go at Tombe, unless Tombe can do what he has consistently done, pull away from the second place man Matteo Fabi on the Lesmo bends, and it looks as though he's doing it. Boutsen has gone into the pits with, I suspect, a failed engine, and that's Alboreto, fourth position. Boutsen out then with all the others.
So a fantastic battle up front, the three-cornered fight for the lead, and we're already well past half distance now, and I think that whatever happens, here come the leaders. That's Winkelhock just in front of them. Oh, sorry, that's Berger, the Austrian driver, being lapped again. But I think whatever happens, that Tombe and Fabi will try and stay out there, even if they're in a bit of trouble with their tires. They will try and finish in this current form. And that presents a bit of a problem for Niki Lauda, because does he want to accept 4 points in fourth place? There's no doubt that he is potentially the fastest man on the circuit now, but or does he want to settle for 4, or does he want to try and pass them and fight his way through with the risks involved to capture the extra 9? If I was in his shoes, I'd go for the 9. I think one would have to go for the win.
A quick few compliments to Gerhard Berger there. It's only his second Grand Prix, but he very courteously, having kept a good eye on his mirrors, let Tombe and Fabi and Lauda through. And the result is that the gap is much the same, although Niki Lauda has got Hugh Brotengatter in the Spirit in front of him, but I think he's passed him now. They're coming down. Yes, he has. He's got past Brotengatter, the Dutch driver, in the Spirit Hart car. And on lap 33, we see Tombe, Fabi, Lauda battling for the lead. It's still Alboreto fourth, Warwick fifth, Chiva in sixth position, Johansson is seventh, Patrese is eighth, Ginzani is ninth, and he's the last man not to have been lapped. Joe Gartner, who is 10th, has been lapped. Sura is 11th, Rotengatter is in 12th position. And where is Derek Warwick? Derek Warwick is off the circuit, and Stefan Johansson, in his first race for Tolman, is up into 6th position and World Championship point places. Derek Warwick off the circuit. There is his car. Derek Warwick on lap 34 out of the Grand Prix, and you can see now how this very fine soft material stops the car, but having done so makes it almost impossible to get it off the circuit. They have power winches and cranes actually, and I think they'll need that to get Warwick's Renault out of the way. Another terribly disappointing race for Warwick. 6th in the championship. He's had a couple of seconds, a couple of thirds and a 4th, but he's not going to get any points in this race.
And down the field, just behind the leaders, Eddie Cheever and Stefan Johansson have been having a huge battle for quite a long time now. Stefan Johansson, in a wonderful drive in the Tolman, through from the back of the grid. They had pretty unhappy practice, and he's doing a marvellous job, but he's got stuck behind Eddie Cheever, and he's been looking for a way round for quite a long time, some 20 laps or so.
In order for that caption to be meaningful, of course, you need to know what the race numbers are. Well, 15 is Tombay, there he is. 2 is Fabi, there he is. 8 is Niki Lauda, there he is. And this is the best battle in a Grand Prix that we have had for a very long time, certainly this season, with all the first 3 together on lap 34 completing it. James, they can all see each other. I expect they know from pit signals that they're well ahead of Alboreto, who is 4th. What will whose tactics be?
Well, I think for Tombe and for Fabi, they'll just be going hell for leather, quite honestly. I think they're both possibly in a little bit of tyre trouble, certainly tyre trouble relative to Niki, who's running the hard tyres, very conservative. The interesting part of the equation is what will Lauda's tactics be. So the first 2 are racing hard. Now Lauda is right up behind Fabi. Fabi made a bit of a mistake there, coming out of the chicane. But of course the Brabham is very, very quick down the straight. But I would think that Lauda will be looking now. He's been very comfortable through the race, and I think now he'll be looking to make a move. He will want to pick up 9 points, because the difference between 1st and 3rd is more than double. Right, 9 points for a win, 4 for 3rd place, and Lauda won't be very happy with that. His car is good. It would appear that the water problem they had in the warm-up this morning has gone away, because if it was going to manifest itself, it would have done so by now. So now is the time that Niki should be starting to make a move, and he's doing exactly that. He's starting to press Fabi.
Lauda with a new engine since the warm-up. They decided to fit a new one, and this is it, is it? Well, Fabi is going to need all his cool now, because Lauda is practically sawing the Brabham gearbox in half with the nose of his McLaren.
The problem for Niki is that Teo Fabi is relatively inexperienced as a Grand Prix driver, and the thought that must be going through Niki's mind is that he is also an Italian in his home country, in his home Grand Prix, and that always pumps up a little bit of extra adrenaline. And the one thing Niki can't afford to do is to make contact. So he's going to be very, very conservative about trying to get past Fabi. He's going to be awfully careful and quite worried about it.
Exactly 16 seconds behind Niki Lauda. It's still Michele Alboreto in the sole Ferrari left in the race, with Arnoux having retired. Alboreto 4th. He is some 17 seconds ahead of Eddie Cheever, who is 5th. You can see how close it is between Cheever and Johansson. Less than a second. Johansson being in 6th position. Then it's Patrese 7th. Ginzani is 8th. Gartner is 9th, but has been lapped. And there is Joe Gartner, Ginzani, who's being caught by the leading 3. And this is where we could get a change, because if Piercarlo Ginzani in the Osella, that's number 24 in the blue car, doesn't move over and let them through, there could be a change of leadership. Now let's watch. Ginzani's already gone through the chicane. Now there are Tombe, Fabi, Lauda together. Renault, Brabham-BMW, McLaren tag, and you can see Ginzani in front of them, and I suspect they're going to catch Ginzani round about the Ascari chicane. There he is. There is the Italian who comes from Bergamo in the Alfa Romeo Turbo V8 powered Osella.
Yes, Tombe does not want to catch him in the Lesmos, because that would slow him down. It will slow down his speed. He's getting awfully close to him, but he wants to get the straight line speed for this next straight. But in fact, he's got through all right, and he'll get a little bit of a tow. So that was a potential crisis for Tambay. If he got held up, remember, it's always the leader, and well done, Gartner. He's absolutely terrified, but that was the right thing to do. Maybe if he'd braked a little bit earlier and thought about it a bit sooner, he wouldn't have nearly had an accident. But proper thing too, he was watching his mirrors, and the leaders have gone through unmolested in, well, this is undoubtedly the best battle we've had this year for the lead in a Grand Prix.
Ghinzani suffered there, but my goodness, he benefited with perfect racing manners the first three. And incidentally, it was at that point that Ghinzani's teammate, Joe Gartner, had a gigantic off in practice in his Osella and damaged it very badly and was very, very lucky not to be hurt himself. So, lap 38, 51 lap race, still the battle. Tambay, Renault leads, Fabi, Brabham second, Lauda. McLaren is in third position. The gap between Lauda third and Alboreto fourth is still just under 16 seconds. Shiva is still fifth, about 16 seconds behind Alboreto fourth. Just ahead, Shiva fifth of Johansson sixth. Patrese is seventh and is the last man now not to have been lapped by this flying trio. Out of the Lesmo bends, down to the Ascari chicane.
Well, whatever problems that Tambay and Fabi might have been having earlier with tyres will now have gone away. They've settled down. I should explain that the tyres are more vulnerable to overheating when they're earlier in the race. First of all, the car's heavier, but more importantly, there's less wear on the tyres. So Lauda's got a real battle on his hands. It looked at about half distance as if his choice of hard compound had been the good one, but now that the tyres have worn down a bit, but Lauda is now in a challenging position, but he doesn't have the straight line speed. Well, he's inside Fabi, but how brave is he? Because Fabi's very brave. For sure, Fabi is going to be super brave, and Niki can't afford to take any risks at all, so he's going to have to settle to sit behind him.
I think that Fabi's tyres are going off. We know that the Brabham is marginally harder on tyres than the McLaren is, and I suspect that Niki Lauda, with his smooth driving style and the fact that the McLaren is slightly better on tyres than the Brabham, is in an advantageous position. Because I remind you again of how Fabi's been thumping those curbs all through this race, and that won't have done his Michelins a lot of good. Lauda's going to have a go for it, coming up to the Ascari, but no.
Yes, it's the same old problem. The Brabham is very fast in a straight line, and Lauda can't afford to be brave. But it's beginning to become a problem for him, because whilst Fabi is getting more and more ragged, Tambay is starting to put out a bit of a gap. And one thing Niki doesn't want is to let Tambay get away, because he's going to get past, and he would really like to get past Tambay as well. So Fabi is starting to become a serious problem for Niki.
And if, for instance, Lauda finished in second position, and he wants to win this race, he would get 6 points. He would only be 7.5 points ahead in the World Championship of his teammate Alain Prost. And if at the next Grand Prix, which is the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, their roles were reversed and Prost finished second or won and Lauda went out, once again the championship positions would have changed. And it really does look at the present moment as though the championship is going to go right down to the last Grand Prix of the year, which for the first time for a very long time is going to be at Estoril. And we know now that Piquet's trouble was that a water cooler broke in his Brabham-BMW. So once again, it wasn't anything to do directly with the engine, it was something that was attached to the engine. And Tambay is definitely now benefiting from the fact that Fabi is having to work very hard to keep Lauda behind him because the Frenchman is pulling away, but he's now up to Patrese as Lauda goes for it, and he's going to take second place. Coming down to the parabolica, and he's through. Lauda is through, up into second position, and in front of him, the race leader, Patrick Tambay, is probably going to be obstructed by Riccardo Patrese. Now, if Patrese's let Tambay through, is he going to let Lauda through? Well, I remind you that last year, Patrese, who's in an Alfa Romeo this year, was in the same team as Nelson Piquet in the Brabham. He's changed. Now he's got Niki Lauda catching him. Is he going to move over and let him through so that Lauda can, hopefully, from his point of view, do something about setting about and trying to catch Patrick Tambay, the race leader, the first time this season since the Brazilian Grand Prix that a Renault has led a Grand Prix, and then it wasn't Patrick Tambay, it was Derek Warwick who's out of this one. And now on lap 41, Tambay leads, Lauda second, Fabi third, Alboreto fourth, Chiva fifth, Johansson sixth, Patrese seventh, and then Ghinzani eighth, who's been lapped. Gartner is ninth. You're looking at Alboreto in fourth position. 10th is Sura, 11th is Berger, and 12th is Rotengatter. Michele Alboreto there, carrying the world-famous number 27 that so many of the greats of the past have carried. And he won in Belgium. He had a third place in Austria. And the leaders have exited the parabolica, and Patrese is still ahead of Teo Fabi, and I think that's highly significant. I think Teo Fabi is now really having to grapple with a set of Michelins that have gone off, whereas Lauda is not, and you can see that Niki Lauda is definitely catching Patrick Tambay. Lap 42.
Yes, but he's catching him, but not as quickly as I'd expected once he got clear air there. And so we've got a real race to the finish, because Lauda desperately needs to win this, but Tambay is showing lots of form, and is not going to be an easy target at all. Fabi, I think, as Murray rightly says, he's worn his tyres out. He will now be satisfied with third place, or he should be, and he'll settle down to look after that and protect that. He's out of the race. So it's now a head-to-head fight. It's really a question for Niki as to weighing up the odds as to whether he wants that extra 3 points. He's not worried about winning Grand Prix. He's won plenty of those in the past. He would like to win the championship. And he'll be churning away in his brain at the moment. Should I take the risk, try and pass Tambay, grab those extra three while they're there and for the picking, or should I settle for a fairly conservative approach, take 6 points and still have Prost within one win and one breakdown for me, the lead in the championship. So Niki will be putting as much effort into his brain as he will into his body right now, because he's going to be doing a lot of weighing up of odds.
Under 10 laps to go, and I remind you that Niki Lauda is driving that McLaren tag strapped up after putting his back out yesterday in practice, after qualifying, literally crying with pain, and he's going for it. He's going to take the lead, and he's through. Niki Lauda leads on lap 43. The brilliant Austrian passes Patrick Tambay, and that is confirmation, I think, of the fact that Lauda, better than anyone, including Patrick Tambay, has preserved his tyres, and if he wins this race, it means that no matter what happens in Germany at the European Grand Prix, at the Nürburgring, the new Nürburgring on October the 7th, Lauda will be leading the championship, even if Prost wins and he fails to finish when they go into Estoril. By the way, Stefan Johansson has passed Eddie Chiva and is now 5th. And on lap 43, the revised order that you are looking at is Niki Lauda leading and on his way to his 5th Grand Prix win of 1984. Patrick Tambay second, Teo Fabi third, Alboreto fourth, Johansson fifth and Chiva sixth.
And there we go, and McLaren's enjoying the huge luxury when they can go completely conservative on setup. And Teo Fabi has just pulled off the circuit, pulled out of 3rd place, right in front of the pits. And so that's the end of Fabi's race. There he is, getting out of the car. And really a great shame, but there's a big cheer from the crowd because that puts Alboreto up into 3rd place. And really a very worthwhile revival from Ferrari. Now, Niki got past. Tambay isn't finished yet, though. Tambay missed a gear, I think, or made some sort of mistake when Niki got past him out of the chicane. And he is, to my surprise, and I think probably to Niki's surprise, is not lying down and dying. He's not taking it quietly. So a terrific fight back by Tambay, who's desperately trying to keep on terms.
Yes, Tambay will be even more anxious to win than Niki Lauda. Because, as I've said before, and it's worth saying again, Renault have yet to score a win. They've won their first Grand Prix in 1979. They've won one every year since, and not to win this year with these new cars that they've produced with their new team of Patrick Tambay and Derek Warwick has been a terrible setback for the French concern. And there is Alboreto's car, and the Italian crowd, understandably, are going absolutely mad with enthusiasm because now you can see that Tambay is out. You can't see, but I can. Patrick Tambay has stopped. Patrick Tambay has stopped on lap 45, and that means to say that Michele Alboreto is now up to 2nd place. So both the Renaults are out, but that's Michele Alboreto's Ferrari behind Riccardo Patrese Alfa, and it sounded a bit fluffy to me. I think Tambay's just run out of petrol, actually.
Yes, I'm sure he has. Fuel consumption was a big problem here, and the big question mark now is whether the Ferrari will be able to go the distance. They'll be on the limit. McLaren, for sure, will be very conservative. I think that it's unlikely that we'll see a problem for Niki Lauda, but it's been a very, very hard race. And I think a harder race than any of the front runners expected. So we may see quite a lot of people running out of fuel in these late stages. Remember, we still got some 6 laps to go. But Lauda, of course, now with a huge advantage.
Niki Lauda really can afford to coast now, metaphorically speaking, because he's leading on lap 45 out of 51 with Alboreto 2nd. Chiva has now moved up into 3rd position. Patrick Tambay out of the race, which means to say that Teo Fabi is 4th, and Stefan Johan Fabi out of the race. So now it's Lauda leading, and there's Michele Alboreto taking Riccardo Patrese and lapping him. Johansson has been into the pits but is now back in the race, and on lap 46 it's Lauda leading, Alboreto in 2nd place. In 3rd position behind Alboreto it's Eddie Chiva, and I wonder if the Alpha is... That looks like that's one of the arrows. I can't see whether it's Boutsen or Sura. It looks like Thierry Boutsen. However, there is Alboreto, and we are now on lap 46. It's Lauda, Alboreto, Chiva. Then in 4th position, we're frankly in doubt because we're trying to see whether Stefan Johansson has come through. The race is tending to fall apart after the first 3, of which we are absolutely sure. That is to say, Lauda, Alboreto, Chiva. Patrick Tambay is out, Fabi is out. We're waiting for Johansson, who could well be 4th, with Patrese in 5th position, has been lapped, and Ghinzani back in the points for the first time since, I think, the Austrian Grand Prix, in 6th position. But those last 3 positions very much subject to confirmation until we get them going past us. Johansson is still going, and he is in 4th position at the present moment. It's Lauda, Alboreto, Chiva, Johansson, Patrese and Ghinzani. And Eddie Chiva is in 3rd position, the last one not to have been lapped. 5 Giri al termine, as you see, 5 laps to go. We're now therefore on lap 47, and you are looking at one of the very greatest Grand Prix drivers of all time, Niki Lauda. This is his 155th Grand Prix, of which he's already won 23, finished 2nd in 19, finished 3rd in 9, has put up 22 fastest laps, has taken 24 pole positions, and has achieved the greatest number of World Championship points in the history of motor racing, and that looks like an Alfa Romeo out to me on the left there, and Lauda's points record 388.5, and it's Chiva out, as he forecast to me yesterday. The unfortunate, no doubt furious Eddie Chiva, towering over his Alfa Romeo, who was in 3rd position, is out of the Italian Grand Prix, and that means to say that Stefan Johansson is now in 3rd position. Stefan Johansson in 3rd position, he's been lapped, so that means to say that he will have less of a fuel problem than the others, because he will have 3.6 miles less than Lauda to do, because when the checkered flag goes out, that's the end of the race, irrespective of how many laps you have done. And it's Lauda leading, Alboreto 2nd, Johansson 3rd, Patrese 4th. Will he run out of fuel in his Alfa Romeo? Ghinzani 5th, and incredibly, Joe Gartner is in 6th position, albeit 2 laps behind the race leader, who is there rather, and is on lap 48 out of 51. Johansson is slowing. I think he's lost a gear. It sounds to me as though Stefan Johansson has lost a gear, but he's got a pretty substantial lead over Ghinzani, who is now in 5th position. And what a race this has been, with Piquet leading, Prost going out of the race, Arnoux going out of it, then Rosberg and Lafitte, Mansell and Piquet, De Angelis, who lost his World Championship chances, and Lauda looks like making it 5.
Yes, it's really a shame that the race has fallen apart so much in the last few laps, because we've had an absolutely fascinating and on-the-limit struggle for the lead in a 3-card fight. It's really been a very, very good race indeed, and it's just a pity that it's with the fuel consumption problems that they've had, that everybody should be dropping out at this stage and leaving Niki really a very easy task, just to basically coast home. Alboreto at this stage won't be trying to chase Lauda. He will be doing what Lauda's doing, turning his boost down, cutting back his fuel consumption and making sure he finishes.
Alboreto is 25.2 seconds behind Niki Lauda in the lead. Now in 3rd position, Riccardo Patrese is 8 seconds behind number 27 there, Michele Alboreto, who, as you see, has 3 laps to go and is catching one of the Ocellas. It looks like Joe Gartner to me, the Austrian, who is actually in 6th position now that Eddie Chiva has retired. Yes, it is Joe Gartner. And Michele Alboreto, take a close look at the Ferrari, because this is actually the new chassis, but it's got the old bodywork on it. They had some McLaren type bodywork on it. Everybody's had to come into line now and follow John Barnard's brilliant design principles. That's the McLaren designer, which is now seemingly going to have won 10 Grand Prix out of the 14 that will have been held at the end of this year. And that is an amazing record. In Holland, McLaren broke the John Player Special Lotus record of 8 wins in one season, which Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson created in 1978. And Stefan Johansson in 5th position, 2 laps behind, is very, very slow indeed. He must be nursing his car to finish, but the race leader in the red and white Marlboro McLaren with its tag Porsche-designed engine, Niki Lauda, is now on his 50th lap.
Yes, talking about McLaren, though, you're absolutely right. There's a frenzy of McLaren-type copies coming out amongst the designers. And there is Stefan Johansson in real trouble. He's going very slowly, and I think you're right. I think it's a gearbox problem because he seems to have an engine. But the big problem always with copying other cars for a designer is what bit do you copy, or do they know what they're copying? Because whilst there's plenty of science involved, there's also still plenty of art in motor racing, and just copying a car won't make it the same.
Niki Lauda is catching the new 6th place man, and that's Gerhard Berger, the Austrian in the ATS. There's John Barnard to the right of the screen. On the left is Steve Nicol. To the right is Crichton Brown. They're the McLaren men, and they're waiting now to see Lauda as out goes one of the Acellas, run out of petrol. It's Ghinzani. Ghinzani's run out of petrol. There he is, and he was in 4th position, having passed Johansson. Now you see how that means to say that Berger will have gone up to 5th and Gartner will have gone up to Berger will have gone up to, I think, 4th position. Let's work this out. We're on the last lap now. You're watching the race leader, and Lauda leads. Alboreto is 2nd, Patrese is 3rd, Gartner is 4th, Berger is 5th, and Hugh Rotengatter, the Dutchman in the Spirit car, in only his 7th Grand Prix, is in the points 6th place. 1 point if he finishes where he is now. And you see there Riccardo Patrese being chased by Joe Gartner. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if he runs out of fuel because he's going extremely slowly. Almost at the end of the race, Stefan Johansson is actually, I see, still running, so he could well be in the points at the end of the race. And Niki Lauda is almost home to have won his 5th Grand Prix of 1984, making it 10, an amazing 10 for McLaren. They've only got one record left to beat now, and that's the number of World Championship points for the Constructors' Championship, held by the Williams team. They had 120 points. There's Berger, who's going to finish in the points. There is McLaren going into the Parabolica for 9 points to increase his championship lead over his teammate Alain Prost to 11.5 points. And Niki Lauda has made it 5 wins this year to equal his teammate Alain Prost in an astounding drive, having driven the whole race heavily strapped up after putting his back out yesterday, having qualified in extreme pain. And now you see not only the guts and the fortitude, but you see Michele Alboreto finishing in 2nd place to the roar of approval from the crowd. And I was saying, you see the guts and fortitude of a Grand Prix driver. Niki Lauda is now 10.5 points in the lead, because he has 63 points to Alain Prost 52.5. Riccardo Patrese there finishes in 3rd position. Now who is going to be in 4th place? That is the interesting thing. It's Johansson. Stefan Johansson, in his first race for Toleman, has driven magnificently to finish in 4th position and runs out of petrol as he crosses the line. Well, my goodness, Johansson finishes in 4th position. That will mean that Gartner is in 5th place and Gerhard Berger takes 6th position, with my usual caveat, subject to official confirmation, and Gartner coasts across the line. He too, like Ghinzani, has run out of petrol, but he made it to the finish, whereas Ghinzani failed by just 1 lap in this astounding Italian Grand Prix, won by Niki Lauda. I can tell you that Gartner has run out of fuel just after he crossed the line. Even though you can't see him, you're looking at Niki Lauda on his wind-down victory lap. Stefan Johansson ran out of fuel as he crossed the line. And subject to official confirmation, as you look at the second place man, Michele Alboreto, with the forest of Ferrari flags waving in the background, Lauda wins and increases his World Championship lead to 11.5 points. Alboreto second. A great finish for Ferrari after all their travail. A superb finish for Alfa Romeo. Third place for Riccardo Patrese. A magnificent finish, and I shall run out of superlatives soon, for Stefan Johansson in the Toleman, fourth place. ATS have at last got back in the points again, and that's only the second time in their history that they've done it, with Gerhard Berger fifth in only his second Grand Prix, and Ghinzani has actually taken the sixth place by virtue of the fact that he had covered.
Der übliche Tumult in Monza. Hier wird jeder Sieger triumphal gefeiert und heute ganz besonders Niki Lauda. Sein zweiter Sieg in Monza, sein 5. Saisonsieg. Und in der Weltmeisterschaft 10,5 Punkte Vorsprung auf Alain Prost. 63 Punkte. 63 Punkte, das ist für Niki Lauda, was die Weltmeisterschaft betrifft, fast eine magische Zahl. Erinnern wir uns an die Automobilweltmeisterschaft 1976. Berger mit 2 Punkten an 20. Stelle der Weltmeisterschaft. Aber wie gesagt, möglicherweise hat auch Jo Gardner Punkte geholt. Es sei denn, der Österreicher ist in den letzten Rennen so langsam geworden, dass er zweimal überrundet wurde. Jean-Marie Balestre, der FISA-Präsident, rechts mit dem Rücken zur Kamera. Die Strecke bereits von Menschen überflutet. 200.000 heute im Autodrom von Monza. In der Weltmeisterschaft der Konstrukteure ist McLaren schon seit Zandvoort uneinholbar an der Spitze gewesen. Fast 3-mal so viele Punkte wie Ferrari und Lotus. Dann Renault, Brabham, Williams, Toleman, Alfa, Aeros und Osella. Und der Tiroler Gerhard Berger hat dem ATS-Team zu den ersten Weltmeisterschaftspunkten in diesem Jahr verholfen. Was der deutsche Manfred Winkelhock 14 Rennen lang nicht geschafft hat, hat Gerhard Berger in seinem erst zweiten Rennen geschafft. Eine bewundernswerte Leistung der Österreicher heute im Autodrom von Monza. Und der Fitmacher der Formel 1, Willi Dungel, hat wieder einmal gezaubert, denn mit einer ähnlichen Verletzung, wie sie Niki Lauda gestern erlitten hat, würde jeder Arzt 48 Stunden absolute Pause, absolute Ruhestellung verordnen. Aber das Wunder wurde geschafft. Lauda wurde fit gemacht, ist ins Rennen gegangen und Lauda hat gewonnen. Damit hat Niki Lauda die Möglichkeit, bereits am 7. Oktober auf dem Nürburgring den Weltmeistertitel sicherzustellen. Nämlich dann, wenn sein Vorsprung auf Alain Prost auch nach dem Nürburgring-Rennen noch mehr als 9 Punkte betragen sollte. An Siegen steht zwischen Lauda und Prost jetzt 5:5, genauer gesagt 5:4,5, denn der Sieg von Prost in Monte Carlo bringt er bekanntlich nur die Halbpunkte 4,5. Selbst in Tirol grüßt Niki Lauda und freut sich sicherlich auch mit Gerhard Berger aus Wörgl, der dritte Österreicher der Rennsportgeschichte, der Weltmeisterschaftspunkte geholt hat. Auch Gardner hätte Punkte geholt, wäre er nicht in den letzten Runden zurückgefallen. Offiziell wird jetzt Gardner ist 7. in der gleichen Runde wie Ghinzani. Aber Ghinzani hat natürlich die Ziellinie mit einem stotternden Motor etwas früher überquert gehabt als Gardner. Das heißt also Ghinzani 6. 1 Punkt für den Italiener und Gardner 7. 8. dann noch der Holländer Hub Rottengatter. Nur ein Drittel der Fahrer im Ziel. 25 gestartet, 8 angekommen, nur 2 in der gleichen Runde. Niki Lauda gewinnt 24,2 Sekunden vor Michele Alboreto auf Ferrari, eine Runde vor Riccardo Patrese auf Alfa Romeo, 2 Runden vor dem Schweden Stefan Johansson mit dem Toleman Hart, ebenfalls 2 Runden Rückstand an 5. Stelle Gerhard Berger mit dem ATS und 6. ist Piercarlo Ginzani mit dem Osella, 7. Gartner, 8. Rodengatter. Da hat sich Berger gestern noch recht geärgert. Hier sehen Sie noch einmal diesen denkwürdigen Augenblick. Niki Lauda als Sieger im Grand Prix von Italien, abgewunken nach seinem 24. Sieg und von Gerhard Berger auf den letzten Metern ins Ziel geleitet. Niki Lauda hat Gerhard Berger vor Trainingsbeginn am Freitag hier alle Schalt- und Bremspunkte des Monza Autodroms erklärt. Gerhard Berger hat jeden Satz, den Niki Lauda gesagt hat, in sich aufgesaugt und hat sich offensichtlich mit Erfolg danach gehalten. Wie es jetzt bei Berger und ATS weitergeht, ich kann mir nicht vorstellen, dass man den Österreicher nach diesem Erfolg in einem Monat auf dem Nürburgring nicht einsetzen sollte. Niki Lauda steht jetzt dort oben, wo er in Monza schon einige Male gestanden ist. 1975 als Dritter und Weltmeister 1977 als Zweiter. Und Niki Lauda weiß, was er dem italienischen Publikum schuldig ist. Lauda links von ihm, Michele Alboreto, rechts von ihm Riccardo Patrese. Siegerehrung für Niki Laudas 24. Grand Prix-Sieg und Sie haben, glaube ich, mitbekommen, wie Alboreto und Patrese Lauda gefragt haben, was ist mit deinen Rückenwirbeln, war alles in Ordnung, und Niki Lauda hat ihnen bedeutet, ja, offensichtlich hat alles gepasst. Es ist keine Frage von Tapferkeit oder besonderem Mut. Mit einem herausgesprungenen Wirbel kann man einfach nicht fahren, weil man, ja, das sehen Sie, Niki Lauda hat, glaube ich, doch ein bisschen Schmerzen. Man bekommt dann einfach keine Luft und man kann nicht atmen, man muss einfach dann aufgeben, und das hat Niki Lauda ja auch gestern im Training gemacht, vor Schmerzen schreiend, hat er mir nachher erzählt, durch die Parabolika-Kurve gefahren. Aber heute mit dieser Bandage hat alles funktioniert. Meine Damen und Herren, ich hoffe, Sie sind zufrieden. Niki Lauda steht vor seinem 3. Weltmeistertitel nach diesem triumphalen Sieg in Monza. Ich darf mich für Ihnen verabschieden und gebe zurück nach Wien.
マクラーレンタグポルシェ、そしてミシュランも合わせてですけれども、圧倒的に強かったですね、はい、もうちょっとね、退屈症候群に入るぐらい強かったですよね、それから、特筆すべきはホンダが、ダラスでまず優勝ができた、これが大きかったですね。それから雨のモナコ、セナとベルフが活躍した、それからオーストリアグランプリで、全車ターボカーになった、はい、そしてこのグランプリで新たな若手がまた伸びてきた、そのうち1人は本当に志半ばで散ってしまったのは残念ですけれども、はい、本当に夢のある時でしたよね、
そしてレギュレーション、そしてテクニカルな部分ではどうですか。
そうですね、220リッタールール、そして燃料補給禁止になって、燃費がきつくなる、でもこれがまた技術者にとって新たなチャレンジになったし、新たな燃料が出てきたり、これからね、またレースとしてはちょっと面白くない時もあるけれども、長い目で見ると